On this training mission, we will go over the basics of using the WMD-7 Targeting Pod. This pod can be mounted on the ventral weapon station, or on underwing stations number 2 or 6. The WMD-7 pod combines a TVIR camera, with a laser designated trigger, and is used by the JF-17 to employ guided weapons against ground targets at distances up to 20 nautical miles. On future training missions, we will learn how to launch such weapons in conjunction with the targeting pod. For now, we will learn and practice the use of just the targeting pod. Press spacebar to continue. The JF-17 autopilot is active, so that you can take a moment to set up the cockpit. We have also placed DCS on active pause, while we configure the aircraft and explain the targeting pod basics. You may now adjust the cockpit lighting, using the knobs at the right console. Press spacebar when ready to continue. Set master mode to air to ground, as the targeting pod ground stabilization won't work otherwise, using the T1 switch on your HOTAS, or press the 7 key. Good. Air to ground mode is now selected and the mission computer has assigned a default configuration for the displays, with the SMS page on the left, the air to ground radar on the center and the HSI page on the right MFCD. As this default configuration does not include the targeting pod image, we will change the right MFCD to display it. To do so, click on the right MFCD menu button. Now, select the pod menu item. Next, select the WMD-7 pod. The other option, TVIR, is for use with TV-guided air-to-ground missiles. Good, now we have the targeting pod page displayed on the right MFCD. You can see that currently the pod is off. Turn it on by clicking on the highlighted button. After the bit has finished, the targeting pod is in a cage status, where its lenses are turned inwards, and so the display is blank. Click on cage to uncage the targeting pod and start receive the video signal. Good, now the targeting pod is ready to use. We will now describe the main elements of the targeting pod display. To allow you to control the targeting pod using the HOTAS, please make the targeting pod a SOI, sensor of interest, by pressing S1 right on the HOTAS. OK, now the targeting pod is the sensor of interest, SOI. We will now describe the main elements of the targeting pod display, beginning with the targeting pod reticle, that is now highlighted. On the HOTAS, use the TDC switch to move the reticle around. Try it now. Note that, on the HUD, a point within a small circle shows the point the targeting pod reticle is currently at. Press spacebar to continue. This indicates the source of the video feed, on this case it is from the WMD-7 targeting pod. This allows the pilot to distinguish the video from other sources, like TV-guided missiles. Press spacebar to continue. This is the camera mode. It can be either CCD, normal TV, or IR, infrared, for use with low light. The camera mode can also be toggled from the HOTAS, with S2 left. Try this control now. Press spacebar to continue. These buttons control the gain, G, and the contrast level, L, of the image. Adjust your preference. Press spacebar to continue. This is the infrared submode. It can't be seen at the moment because the pod is in CCD mode. Please use the S2 left button on the HOTAS to switch to IR mode. The submode can be either white hot or black hot. Select the one that best highlight the targets. The IR submode can also be toggled from the HOTAS, with S2 right. Try it. When finished, please return the pod to CCD mode, with S2 left. Press spacebar to the camera has two lenses, one with a wide field of view, and another with a narrow field of view but more magnification. You can select the field of view from the HOTAS, with S2 forward, narrow, and S2 aft, wide. Please try both. Press spacebar to continue. The camera zoom can be adjusted on the HOTAS, using the T6 antenna elevation knob. Give it a try now. Press spacebar to continue. These are the coordinates of the SPI, sensor point of interest. To select a point as SPI, you have to move the targeting reticle over it and then press T5 to lock the ground at that point. Press spacebar to continue. This is the distance, in nautical miles, from our aircraft to the sensor point of interest, SPI. A zero value means that we have not yet designated any SPI. Press spacebar to continue. The small white dot shows the relative direction of our SPI. When located on the center of the targeting reticle, means that we have not designated any point as SPI yet. Use the TDC to move the targeting reticle around, and see how the white dot behaves. Press spacebar to continue. On the left and bottom border of the display, the green cursors show the current camera gimbal position. Use the TDC to move the targeting reticle around and see how these cursors reflect the movement of the vertical and horizontal gimbals. Press spacebar to continue. This button manually activates the targeting pod refocus function. Try it now. Also, this indicator blinks when adjusting the display zoom, showing the automatic refocusing that is taking place. Press spacebar to continue. This indicator shows the master arm switch status. Arm. Master arm on. No arm. Master arm off. Training mode. Press spacebar to continue. Exercise 1. We will use the targeting pod to locate a ship that is sailing close to the coast, to our left. Place the field of view on wide. Zoom on center position. Camera mode on CCD. Move the reticle to the coast and scan left until the ship is found. Change to narrow field of view. Adjust zoom until the ship can be seen clearly. Adjust gain and contrast level to suit. Press spacebar once you have found and visually inspected the ship. Up to now, we have been using the snowplow (SP) mode of the targeting pod. This is a basic look and designate mode that relies only on the targeting pod video feed, and it is most appropriate for targets of opportunity. Next, we will learn to use the slave mode of the targeting pod. Click on the highlighted button to select slave mode. In slave mode, the targeting reticle is slave to a designated point, that can be a waypoint, a mark point, a ground radar lock or even an area radar lock. Upon entering this mode, the reticle automatically moved to the position of the waypoint 01, over the nearest river's bridge, as that was the current designated point. Press spacebar to continue. Currently, the targeting pod is looking at the nearest bridge on the Ingri River, the one closest to the coast. We will change the current SPI to waypoint 02. To accomplish that, click on the highlighted button on the upfront control panel. Click now on the UFCP number pad digits 0 and 2. The waypoint visor should show 02. Then, click on its adjacent arrow button to accept the input. Good, the targeting pod's reticle should now be pointing to the second bridge up the river. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we will select waypoint 03, to slave the targeting pod on the third bridge up the river. But rather than inputting the waypoint number, like we did on the previous example, you will click first on the arrow key and then right-click on the UFCP Fast Select Rocker switch. The waypoint visor should increment to 03. A left click on the rocker would decrement the visor value. Wait a second and the new value will be entered automatically. The targeting pod's reticle should now point to the third bridge up the river. Exercise 2. To the left of the bridge that corresponds to waypoint 03, there is a moving convoy of 5 vehicles. Try to locate it. Select narrow field of view. Increase the zoom almost to maximum. Switch to IR mode, as it allows easier spotting, particularly on black hot. From the current position of the targeting reticle, move it to the left a bit until you find the moving convoy. Once found, place the reticle over one of the vehicles and press T5 to lock it. The message point should appear on the lower half of the display and the vehicle will be enclosed on a rectangle. Press spacebar to continue, once you have found the convoy. The highlighted item is the targeting pod tracking mode, which could be area mode, INS area, when the pod loses the area track and reverts to latest coordinates saved by the INS. Point, tracking for objects, including moving targets. Mask, the pod view is masked by our own aircraft. In anticipation of the next subject, we will undesignate the target. Do that now, by toggling the mode button, to SP and back to slave. Press spacebar to continue. The WDM07 pod includes a laser designator that we can use to designate targets for laser-guided weapons. The laser has an identification code that allows several different designators to function without conflicting with one another. The highlight shows the current ID laser code of our targeting pod, 1688. This code must match the laser code set by our ground crew to our weapons. The weapons code cannot be changed on the air. Press spacebar to continue. We can change the laser code of our pod, for example in case we want to designate targets for other aircrafts. This is done with the code button. As an exercise, change the code to 1588. Use the numbered buttons to enter the value 1588. Good. Now our pod's laser code is 1588. To test the new laser code, I'm now activating a JTAC group on the ground, that will laser tank group for us. Press spacebar, once the JTAC has reported a sighting. It may take a while. Okay, now we can tell our targeting pod to initiate a laser spot search, LSS, to detect the point that the JTAC is designating for us. Click on the button next to LSS, the pod will start to search for a laser with code 1588. The button changes to SRC, search, LSS, while searching. Once the JTAC laser is detected, the button changes to DET, detected, LSS, and when the pod starts tracking the point it will change again to TRK, tracking, LSS. Press spacebar, once the tracking has been achieved. Good, our pod is now tracking the point designated by the JTAC. Increase the camera zoom using the T6 antenna elevation knob of the HOTAS, to see the tank clearly. Deactivate the laser search, by clicking on the highlighted button, and then press T5 to set the SPI on the tank. as we will use it on our next exercise. Mark points. The mission computer has 9 slots, where we can store coordinates of detected objects for later use, numbered 41 to 49. We will use this feature to store the position of the just detected tank. The procedure is: first, on the upfront control panel, click on the MRK button. The MC will automatically display the first available mark point slot, on this case numbered 41. Second, change the default mark point type, from OFLY to DSG. The OFLY type would create a mark point located just where our aircraft is. Click the arrow next to OFLY, the type should change to DSG. This type creates a mark point located where our SPI is. If you take too long, the MRK button will go off. Just click on it again to restart the mark point creation anew. Press spacebar once the mark point has been created. Finally, press the MRK button again to create the mark point. Press spacebar once the mark point has been created. To test the mark point, we will first undesignate the tank, by toggling mode to SP and then back to slave. The targeting reticle should go back to the bridge of waypoint 03. Adjust the zoom to see it completely. Press spacebar to continue. OK, using what we have learned so far, click on the arrow next to the waypoint display and edit the value to 41. Good. Once the edit is done, the targeting reticle should jump to our mark point number 41, the tank that was designated earlier by the JTAC. Press spacebar to continue. This finishes our training on the use of the WMD-7 Targeting Pod. Over the following missions, we will learn how to drop guided weapons aided by this pod. You may now press the escape key, and exit the mission.